Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In the previous tutorial, we added the controls necessary to determine where to place the embedded marker from the media pool onto the timeline to figure out which track. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to add it at the cursor location. So if we tell it to add a new track, it kind of doesn't matter where your cursor is located, but in my case, if I pick a track, I want it added at the end of the project, so I would need to move the cursor to the end of the project before I do that. So let's see what else is necessary to get the marker information added to the timeline. So let's go back up to the very top and just kind of remind you we have our button refresh, in which we read from our various types depending on the type that is chosen. So then we have our read selected media pool. We do have a change here in that I am, for the last sub item, I'm putting in the full media file path. Previously we were just listing the file name. In order to find this media in the media pool, I really need the full file path. And then the same thing here under read all media pool, we are putting in the full media.file path. But then under read from selected events, we're still just putting in whether it's video or audio, and we're just getting the file name because we're not actually trying to go back to the media pool from this, so there's no change from read from selected events. Next we have our list view selected index changed, which means that we've actually clicked on an item. We're starting out the same. If the listview.selectedindex.count is greater than 0, then we get that list view item and we get the first selected item. Next, we look at sub item number 2. Now this is going to either be the timeline position if we're looking at media on the timeline, or it's going to say media because we're looking at the media pool. And so if it says media, this is media from the media pool. And what I'm going to do now is create an undo block called add marker video to selected tracks. And then the first thing I need to do is get the add tracks. What track is selected in those new controls that we added? We will look at that once we get down below. But once we have the add tracks, then we want to get our media from the media pool. So we go to myvegas.project.mediapool.find, and here's where we look for the full file path, and this is why we needed the full file path up above. Let's get rid of this message box, and now we need our time code, our add location. Like I said, we're going to add it at the cursor location, so myvegas.transport.cursor position. And then the time code marker location, we're going to get this from the list box that we created. So it's going to be a time code from string, and we're going to look at lview.subitems1.text. Now if you remember, the text box shows the marker name, the marker location in the media, then it says the word media, and then it has the full file path. So if we actually found the media, if the media is not null, if the media has video, and add video track is not null, in other words, we found the proper video track, then we're going to get the media, which is a stream, from media.streams.getItem by media type.video, 0. So we want the first video stream. If stream is not equal to null, then we're going to create a new video event at the add location, and we're just going to add it for 10 seconds. We really don't know how far it is to the next media marker, and so for right now, we're just going to add 10 seconds worth. Then once it gets onto the timeline, you can stretch or shrink it however much you need to do to get the actual full segment that you need. Then on the add video track.events.add, we're going to add this new video event. Then we're going to create a new take from the stream, and then on my new video event, on the video event we just added to the timeline, .takes.add, we're going to add the new take. Now, that adds it from the beginning of the media, but we want it to actually be from the media marker position. So here's what we do. We take my new video event.activeTake.offset and change that to the marker location. That means jump forward in the media to this location, and that's where we're going to start. And then what I did, I set my Vegas.transport.cursor position equal to my new event.end. Basically, I just set that so that if we click on multiple ones, it will just automatically go to the end every time. Now this, even though we haven't added the audio yet, we haven't changed our add location. So we're okay, because it's going to be added in the same location. So now we're going to do the same thing with the audio. If the media.has audio and the audio track is not null, then we get the first audio stream. If we found an audio stream, then we're going to do the audio event equals a new audio event at the add location, which is the same location as up here, which has not changed because we have not read the fact that I changed the cursor location. And then we're once again going for our 10 seconds. Next, we add that audio event to the audio track that we selected. Then we create a new take, just like above. Add that new take to that new audio event, and then once again we have to change the ActiveTake.offset to the marker location. And then once again I'm setting the cursor position to the end of that event. So that way, if it only has audio, I have moved the cursor. If it only has video, I have moved the cursor to the end of that event, so that if I click the next one, it's automatically going to be after the one I just added. Now, if it does not equal media, then we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're just going to create an undo block called set cursor location to marker. Then we're going to get the timeline position from the second sub-item, and then we're going to move the cursor position to that timeline position. Now we have this new get add tracks that we haven't looked at yet, so let's take a look at it right quick. Here is our new get add tracks routine. First thing I did was get an integer, which is the vid count, which is the video combo box selected index. Next, we did the same thing and got an audio count. Now, if video count equals 0, that means that we want to add a new track. So what I'm doing is creating a new video track. I'm putting it in the 0 position. That will be at the top of the timeline, and I'm giving it a name, Embedded Markers. And then I'm adding that to the project track list, so we add it as a new track, and then I'm setting my add video track equal to new vid. Otherwise, I'm getting the string of the video text, and what I want to get is the colon index position. And so I got track.index of, and then this colon. Then I want to get the string before the colon. So track.substring 0 colon index, and then I went ahead and trimmed it just in case there were any spaces or anything, which in my particular case I know there isn't, but it's okay to add the trim. And then I'm converting that track index into a number. And so now I can get my add video track, convert a track to the video track from myvegas.project.tracks, and I'm using that track index number. Now, when I got my track index, notice up here I had to convert it to an integer, and then I subtracted 1. Well, the reason I subtracted 1 is we're showing the display index. The actual index is 1 less. So track 1 is actually track 0 when we're accessing it directly in the brackets. Track 2 would actually be track 1, so we have to subtract 1. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with the audio. So we either add a new audio track, which in this particular case I'm adding it in the 1 position. Notice we added the other one in the 0 position, so this would be our second track. That way I have the audio track below the video track, and then I'm calling it embedded markers as well. And then we add the track and set the audio track to that audio track. Otherwise, we're going to do the same thing we did up above, get the actual number of the track index and set that to -1, and then get the audio track, converting it to a type audio track from myvegas.project.tracks, and using our track index to get that track. Now what I did was I called load track lists again, because we've just potentially added 2 new tracks. And so I wanted to get the track list refreshed. If the vid count previously equals 0, now I want to get my selected index equals 1. Otherwise, I want my selected index equal to the vid count again. So what this is doing is, if they had selected new track, now that new track I know is going to be at the top because I put it at the top. And so instead of setting it equal to 0, which says add new track again, now I want to set it to that track that I just added, which is number 1. If I did not just add a track, I want to set it back to the track that the user had previously selected. Same exact thing with the audio. If they selected add new track, I want to set it to that track that I just added. If they did not select add new track, then I set it back to the track that they had selected. So now let's see how this works. So we build it again, copy again. Oops, I have to close Vegas first. Now we'll open our project again. So let's just select Media Pool and refresh, and we can see all the items we have listed here. I'm going to move my cursor to the end. I'm going to tell it that I want it added to track 3 video track and track 4 audio track. And now let's go ahead and search. And once again, I'll just search for read. And so let me click on this first one here that says lots of reading here. And you can see that it is added to the end of the timeline here at the cursor position. But my cursor did not move. And then if I type on reading main content, okay, so it is properly adding, but my cursor is not moving. So we'll look at that in the next tutorial, and let's figure out why our cursor did not actually move to the end. But you can see that it was actually added. Now if I go back to selected events and refresh, if I click on reading main content here, you will see that this is what we get. And if we look right here, this is exactly the exact same frame. If I click on lots of reading here, you can see that we were right on this Army of the Tennessee. And if I click here, you can see we're on the exact same frame. So as you can see, we still have a little issue where the cursor was not moving to the end as I had intended it to. Let's try to figure out why that is happening. I'm sure we can figure out why and get that resolved. But what I'd really like to do is be able to get it to go from this marker to the next marker instead of just being a flat 10 seconds. Now, you may like it better at a flat 10 seconds. I don't know. Because you may not want everything that's between this marker and the next marker. But once again, once it's on the timeline, you can shorten it as needed if you don't want the entire section. So I hope you like this tutorial. Like, subscribe, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future tutorials, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.